interesting. David, I'd be fascinated to get your thoughts on what Lynn was saying there, because someone who's your typical floating voter, she's voted for all of the main parties over the years, but now she just wants to get the Tories out.
Well, I think it's really interesting. Lynn is an example of Labour could lose in the future, because, like she said, she's largely socially conservative, is worried about a lot of Labour's social policies. Now, the Brexit situation, a lot of people say Brexit was just about sovereignty, and yes, they were teething issues in that front. But Lynn, as you can see, is someone who's worked hard into her taxes in the system all her life, and she just wants proper social services, and especially on the NHS as well. Now, the big conversation we need to be having, which I didn't hear enough from it, we heard earlier, is talking about, well, reforming the NHS. No, there needs to be looking at other systems as well. For the Lib Dem example, love their opinion. They're French or German healthcare systems. We're seeing a system that is being strangulated by a number of factors, including Macron, which has put undue pressure on services, and I think Labour need to be talking about that.
OK, David, apologies, we have got problems with your connection, so we're going to try and get that sorted out. Kathleen, what's your take on it all? Because what you've got to be careful with all of this is that it's not a walk in the park for the Labour Party. A lot of people are saying, actually, we still don't know what Keir Starmer stands for.
Thank you, Anne and Stephen, for having me on. And as Labourless readers will tell you, we're not taking anything for granted. We are fighting every single day. There are 25 days to go until July the 4th. And as far as I'm concerned, no votes have been counted. Yes, you can look at that MRP polling that has Labour so far ahead of the Conservatives. Conservatives now polling, looking at maybe 66, 100 seats. Let's see what happens, but Labour not taking anything for granted at this stage.
No, and I think the other thing that a lot of voters are worried about, especially the floating voters, where they're wondering how strategically to spend their vote, is if Labour gets an enormous majority, which is what some polls are suggesting, then they don't have an effective opposition. And every government should have a good opposition. So maybe Labour won't get the enormous amount of votes they think they will.
Well, we're yet to find out, but I've been up and down the country. I was in Thanet last week, and yesterday I was in Mansfield. And let me tell you, people are voting for change, and they are so tired of 14 years of Conservative government. It's completely unacceptable. Rishi has had another terrible week. The Prime Minister has had another bad week in this election cycle. I don't know why he's called it. It's been a total disaster.
Yeah, but there is this issue, isn't there, with Labour, which we can't get away from, which is the fact that they might be doing well because people like Lynn say we just want to get rid of the Conservatives. But it's back to that first point. What does Labour actually stand for? People really don't know at this stage.
Well, I think Keir Starmer has been really clear about what we stand for, but we'll know more on the 12th and the 13th of June when the manifestos are launched. And then we'll be able to see, and Labourless readers especially will be able to see exactly what's going to be in that manifesto and what our offer is for the country.
Yeah, and we're all going to have to turn into accountants, aren't we, somewhere along the line, because there are going to be so many promises made, and there are so many promises being hinted at from all parties in today's newspapers. But, of course, it always comes down to how on earth are you going to cost them. We're all going to have to do our homework and do our sums, aren't we?
Absolutely, and Labourless will, of course, be doing that as well as GB News. Listen, Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, hopefully to become Labour's first female Chancellor, has been really, really clear that these policies have to be fully costed, and we need to ensure that the public trust us going forward.
All right, fingers crossed we've got David Moore a little bit clearer now. David, what's your take on all of this? I mean, it's in some respects, it's back to the same old arguments, isn't it? Labour saying, well, they've got it all, it's all fully costed and all the rest of it. I mean, you've got to take that, of course, with a pinch of faith. But then but you've got to do the same with the Conservatives. You can't actually believe what's being told. We just have to wait and see.
Well, firstly, people do not know what Labour stand for now. There's so much apathy in politics right now where they feel the Conservatives aren't being conservative enough. They don't know where Labour stands now. And we know the Lib Dems just too busy just watching Ed Davey fall off a boat. There's complete apathy in politics at the moment. And especially with the Labour Party, let's be honest, nothing's costed in the Labour Party. They'll still continue their magic money tree and continue their mass spending. And they haven't talked about the main issues properly, nor have they talked about, they've hidden their agenda about realigning with the European Union, for example, which is something obviously a lot of voters still voted Brexit for sovereignty reasons. And now, of course, voters like Lynn we heard before, as you could hear, she was socially conservative. She's concerned about the social direction of the Labour Party. And Keir does not really know what a woman is. So, so you have issues like that as well.
Yeah, but heck, if someone's socially conservative and yet the Conservative Party aren't the answer for her, you've got to start a bit of root and branch reform, haven't you?
Well, I think a lot of Conservative voters and members, like myself, want the Conservative Party to be more socially conservative. And this is why voters are often socially right, conservative, and sometimes economically more interventionist. That's the current prevailing winds. The 2019 Conservative Manifesto is a prime example of that. That, it was not completely Thatcherite economic manifesto, but it was quite socially conservative. But then again, some Conservatives say Boris wasn't socially conservative enough. So we're seeing a situation here where the Overton window and discussing things like migration is really shifting to the centre-right, actually. 10 years ago, we had a Labour Prime Minister called Gillian Duffy, a bigoted woman for having genuine concern over migration. And now we're seeing people like Keir Starmer calling for immigration caps. So we're really seeing the debate transforming at the moment. And that's why, because the electorate are sick and tired of unvetted mass migration.
And of course, they're predicting, so many polls are predicting the lowest ever turnout in history, I think. I mean, what do you make of that, Kathleen? People may want to punish the Tories, but they haven't fallen in love with Keir Starmer.
We've had 14 years of Conservative government not delivering for the British people. So I'm not surprised to hear what you've said there, which is people not feeling like they want to go to the ballot at all. It's not something that I've been hearing on the doorsteps, and I am going to all the battleground seats, or as many as Labour lists can send me to. So I'm excited to see what happens. There's 25 days to go. A lot can happen in this election cycle, but Rishi has had another terrible week. It's been another poor week for the Prime Minister.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to touch on that. I know a lot of our viewers and listeners get infuriated, David, that we're still talking about the D-Day business on Thursday. But actually, that was the most ridiculous shooting yourself in the foot situation. I cannot imagine. I mean, this is a problem. You cannot imagine what was going through his head.
Yes, well, I was in Normandy representing my local area because I'm also a councillor for 3 days, actually. And when I read that news in Normandy, because I would have, done anything to get a ticket to that service, when I read that news, I felt disappointed. I felt let down, not for me, but for the many veterans there. It was a real shame when I saw that, and it was the wrong thing to do. I'm glad he's apologised, but still, it's set the side down, and a lot of people are disappointed in that. And a lot of Conservative voters and members I know are very angry and feel very let down, actually. It wasn't the right thing to do. He should have stayed there for the full thing. And I mean, who advises someone to leave for an ITV interview that the press often considered, famously, that they're your enemy? You would rather prioritise that over D-Day veterans. So, it was disappointing.
OK, David, Kathleen, good to see you both.